I'm Troy Thompson. Over the last 15 years, our family has worked hard to create a place we call the center of the universe. A place where our kids and someday our grandkids can come home to and laugh, have fun, learn how to work, pray, worship God, and be a place to celebrate life with all our friends. After a quarter century in uniform, I put away one set of boots for another, working on our acreage, improving the land, fixing some structures, and building new ones. We say, give back to the community, be useful, keep your hands calloused, and spread the gospel. This is a little place in a little state right in the middle of flyover country, from which cries out a voice in the wilderness to all who might want to listen, learn, and laugh along with us. This is our American dream. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. I am so happy that you're joining me on the show this week. It's December, and it's the Christmas season, which we love very much here at the old Sunnyside place, and I'm sure you do as well. I think that Christmas is, this time of year, is a great time to tell stories. We love the heartwarming stories. They're full of heartwarming stories on our subscription channels, like you get all of those romantic Christmas movies. They seem to all be the same sort type of Hallmark type situations, and there's just lots of Christmas films. Not a lot of Thanksgiving films out there, although I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is probably the best Thanksgiving movie that there is to this date. But that's long past, and now we're deep into the Christmas season, and I thought that it would behoove me to get back to some of my editing and storytelling background and just take this month, what's left of it, as we get into the new year over the next few weeks, to share stories with you, to produce them, and to just make something nice to listen to, maybe that you haven't heard. One thing about me that you may or may not know is that I do have a lot of books. I like to read. I'm an avid reader, been an avid reader my whole life, and I have a lot of books that I've picked up from, when the libraries get rid of books that nobody else wants. I get some of those. I'll peruse them and pick them up, and have thus built my library collection for decades. When we would move from time to time, from house to house, wherever it might be, it seemed like the first thing that got packed up was my books, and they have traveled with me and now are permanently we like to think permanently where they're going to be until they remove me in a box, right? So what kind of books I read? Wide and varied, lots of history, lots of biography, lots of plays, lots of fiction. I discovered fiction I would say as an older person, probably in the last 10 years is when I've really come around to enjoy fiction. I always felt that I needed to focus. My life is too short to not just focus on things you need to know, and so I was very much married to nonfiction, and and that is there's a value for that. Makes you useful in trivia, I suppose. But once I kind of latched onto fiction, I was obviously much more enjoyable, and you read the books a lot faster. So the biography books that are piled around different places in the house and here at the studio, they go a little bit slower, and that is something. I read books. Maybe you do this the same way. I read books, multiple books at a time, not all at once, obviously, but I might have a book in this room and a book in that room and a book by the bedstand and a book by the toilet, and there's just books everywhere, and that's what I'll be reading. So I'm maybe following 5-6 different storylines at any given time, and then I don't have to jump right back into it. I don't necessarily make myself read unless it's a really, really good book, and then I just kind of get wrapped up into it. The most recent of which I have to say is A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is written by a guy named John Irving, who's phenomenal. And when I finish a book, this is not a review of A Prayer for Owen Meany, but maybe someday I will do one of those reviews. When I finish a book, lately, the last few years, I'll write in the front cover when I finished it, approximately, and any note that I can think of at that time. So that I guess my brain is saying that when my kids go through my junk after I die, that they'll look at those things and say, oh, he read this back in 2012 or whatever. And so I wrote in the A Prayer for Owen Meany that this is perhaps one of the best books I've ever read. And so if you have the time, I would recommend that as a great Christmas gift. It's just phenomenal. The only thing, I also wrote in the front cover, chapters are too long. Probably the best book that I've ever written or ever read. So they are too long. There's only like 7 or 8 chapters, and they're all like 50 to 80 pages long, which I feel it's a bit long, John Irving. But he's the expert. He's the master. He's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. So it's not about wrestling. It's about this kid named Owen Meany, and you'll find out if you read the book. It is it's amazing. So check it out if you have not. He's the same guy that wrote the Cider House Rules and different things like that. So he captures you with the first line. Anyway, I write in the front page of the book when I read something and what I think about it, and then I just keep them around. And so I also, because I have all these old books that I've collected. Some of our books are 150 years old. Some of them we picked up at auctions, and they've also been, I've gotten lots of books as gifts. That's what kids get the dad that they know reads, and I'm an easy dad to buy books for, because it's usually when there were bookstores readily available all over the place, you could just go to the bin where they're just selling them as cheaply as they possibly can, and usually in the history or the biography section, just pick up a book there and spend $3 on it. That's going to be it, and just take the sticker off that says reduced price, and then give it to me, and I'll probably read it and add it to the collection. That's where you can shop for books for me, and maybe you're like that, maybe you're not, but because of that, I've got a lot of old books. And it's kind of fun. At this time of year, it gets colder, get the fireplace going, sit in the corner, read a book, and it's just a variety of things to look at. And so what I've been working on is putting together some things for your entertainment this month here on the Sunny Side of Life that gets back to some of our production stuff. So we're going to do, for the week of Christmas, we're going to do a show. It's just going to be a play that's the episode, and I'm looking forward to presenting that to you. That will be done that'll come out on the 23rd, and that play is called The Miracle of Christmas Eve, which was written in 1939, and you've probably never heard of it, and that's okay. It's a short play. It'll fill up our broadcast for the week of Christmas, and it's just something to have on in the background. Nice little story, appropriate for Christmas. And then next week, I've got some ideas as well for more storytelling related to Christmas, and we're going to do that this week too. So I want to do 2 things today. We'll get into our Christmas storytelling for this month of December, for this Advent and Christmas time. At the end of the broadcast, I'll have a story for you. But before that, I thought it would be fun to give you some insight into the type of books and where my sense of personality and humor sort of comes from. So as a high school kid, I was reading lots of different stuff and listening to lots of different types of music, none of which was from my era. And so I had a real interest in the columnists, the humorists that were in the newspaper. Back then, newspapers were more important than they are today. And I was really interested in guys like Dave Barry. My father-in-law, Denny Burkholder, was syndicated. And this guy named Louis Grizzard, who was a Southern writer. Well, so was Dave Barry. He wrote for Miami Herald, I think. And then Grizzard wrote for Atlanta. And I just loved that. I loved the style, the wit, the humor. Those were the type of columns I appreciated. They could make commentary about what was happening in culture, in politics, in the world, in life, and make it in a way that they could still get their point across and make you laugh or giggle, and you wouldn't roll your eyes too much. And I came from a conservative family, so it was appropriate, I suppose, for me to be inclined to see the humor from a conservative point of view, which doesn't happen very often. It didn't particularly happen much in the 90s, to be honest with you. And so finishing high school in the early 90s was something that I was reading the articles by Louis Grizzard and Dave Barry and these types. But Grizzard is much, in my opinion, funnier and a little more acerbic than Dave Barry, and I love them both. So, but Grizzard was something that I bought almost all the books for, and those collected articles, and then just the things that he had going on. So if you're not sure who Louis Grizzard is, and you've never heard of them, it's LEWISGRIZZARD, and he's just got lots and lots of books out there, and I'm a big fan. And so I was reading recently, rereading some things from a book that he has, which is very funny. It says, his book is called I Haven't Understood Anything Since 1962. And in that is just a variety of just humorous stories and kind of his take on the world. He always provided a Southern perspective to everything as a Southern humorist. He was born in 1946. And unfortunately, he died in 1994. So just shortly, not too many, a little bit after I graduated, about a year after I graduated from high school. And I missed him. He was a prolific writer. He was always funny. He was also a comedian, and he toured. He was on some TV shows, and he was just, I think he was obviously pretty well known, or I think pretty well known in the 80s and early 90s, and then he passed way too soon. He's actually about the same age as my dad, and so I just saw some things. My dad, wasn't a writer. He's a farmer and things like that, but I just appreciated the stories and the background from whence he came, and so it was sad. He had some problems. He battled alcoholism. He went through 3 divorces. He did get married a 4th time. Died shortly after his marriage to his 4th wife. He was called the author from hell from publishers because of his behavior on book tours. He had a congenital heart defect, but to describe that, even in that, he had wit. He said there are 3 little leaflets that control the flow of blood to the heart. I was born with only 2 of those leaflets. It was just after the Great War, so there may have been a shortage. Either that or my daddy didn't get a good toehold. So that's the kind of personality and humor that he has, and you're going to hear more of it, because what I want to share with you today, our first selection, a guy who loves Georgia, loves the South. I am not a Southern man. I'm not from the South at all, and but I can appreciate what he was saying in 1991 or earlier about the woes of being a politically incorrect Southern white male. And it's an interesting thing to look at almost 30 some years later, and where we're at in our world today, as everybody's boxed into little groups, and this is how you're supposed to think, and this is how you're supposed to act, and based on the color of your skin and the different sexual preferences and all that other stuff. And he was kind of concerned about that in a humorous way, even then, back in the late 80s, early 90s. The other thing that's different about this, it does show its age. Nobody's using newspapers anymore, hardly. We're certainly not doing personals in the newspapers. We have all kinds of social media for that, and dating hookups and crazy things that now exist that wasn't even fathomable to Louis Grizzard in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. But so this story is about him, who has decided that he's lonely and he's going to take out a personal ad, and that's when he discovers that he's actually a straight white Southern male, and the problems that go along with that. So without further ado, one of my favorite columnists, one of my favorite guys that I miss, and I'm so glad that I have multiple tomes of his on my bookshelf. From the book I Haven't Understood Anything Since 1962 by Louis Grizzard, Chapter 2, Straight Southern Male Seeks Anyone Who Understands What the Hell is Going On. Once, I put an ad in the personal section of the newspaper. I had never done such a thing before, but I was desperate. I couldn't get a date. I was between relationships at the time, which is to say my girlfriend had run off to join a cult that worshipped plastic, the kind that comes in the form of a wallet-sized card with raised letters and numbers on it. I had a couple of those cards, but my girlfriend had worn them down to slick. and they were no good to her anymore. She had accomplished this on a trip to London, where she bought a sizable interest in Harrods. When I checked out of our London hotel, the Dorchester, the cashier took my plastic and returned a few seconds later to tell me I would not be able to use it to settle my account. And why not, I asked. Because, sir, I was told, we cannot make an imprint of it. Your name and account number have been worn off completely, I'm afraid. Luckily, I had enough traveler's checks with which to settle with the hotel. My girlfriend, however, had overheard the conversation with the hotel cashier and, sensing the ramifications of being with a man with no writing on his plastic, left me a few days after we returned to the United States to join the cult. The last I heard of her, she had received the American Express Distinguished Service Cross for accumulating over $2,000 in charges in one afternoon at a store that sold only pantyhose and garden fertilizer. So, there I was, alone. That situation certainly wasn't new to me. I had already lost 3 wives and countless other girlfriends, but I remained convinced if I continued to persevere, I at last would find a woman with whom I could have a relationship that lasted longer than a commercial for a treatment for yeast infections. A couple of friends tried to fix me up with blind dates. One such date had a tattoo on her forearm that said, "Castrate first, ask questions later." And another began our date by asking the eternal question, "You think wrestling's fake?" Then one day I was looking through the classifieds and came upon the personal section, where people advertise for other people. Why not? I asked myself. I could take out an ad that asked for exactly what I wanted, and I might get lucky. First, of course, I had to decide exactly what I wanted. I didn't want a woman my own age. Women my own age usually had been divorced a couple of times and hated men. That didn't mean they didn't want to find a man. What they wanted was to find a man they could make absolutely miserable to get even with for those first 2 bastards. Women my own age tended to be difficult to impress as well. Let's say you're in Paris, and you say to a woman your own age, "Dear, I have reservations for 2 at Maxim's tonight." Often as not, they will reply, "I hope the service is better than the last time I was there." Younger women, on the other hand, might reply, "Really? Gosh, if you take me there, I'll put on that outfit you bought me when we get back to the hotel. The one with all the feathers." Something else, too. I pride myself on knowing all 50 of the state capitals. Try me. Missouri? It's the one most often missed. Most people think it's St. Louis. No way. It's Jefferson City. Young women tend to be impressed by a man who knows his state capitals. He reminds them of their father, who knew which numbers to invert when they asked him to help them learn how to divide fractions. I was out with a woman my age once, and in an effort to impress her, I went to my whole card, the state capitals. "I know all the state capitals," I told her. "Me too," she replied. "As a matter of fact, I married my first husband in Jefferson City." So what I decided I wanted was a woman, say, between 23 and 28. I wanted her attractive, of course, with no tattoos and no previous acting experience in porno films, but with an active sexual imagination. She didn't have to be Betty Crocker, but I wanted her to at least be able to fry a chicken and make hand-cut French fries. I didn't care whether or not she came from a wealthy background. Actually, I would be thrilled if her father owned downtown Dallas, but I'd previously been married to a daughter of a wealthy man. Unfortunately, she wouldn't get any money from Daddy until he crossed the River Jordan, and he was a health nut. I decided if I was going to go to all the trouble and expense of taking out an ad in the personals, I might as well go for it all. I might as well ask for everything I ever wanted in a woman. I probably wouldn't get it, since that woman probably didn't exist, probably never existed. But Marvin R. of Keokuk probably never thought he'd win the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes either. Okay, young. And how about this? A home economics major in college. Fry that chicken and those potatoes, and, darling, how would you like to have a slice of apple pie baked this afternoon? Can you serve it a la mode? Of course, sweetheart. And how about some ice cream on it, too? Be still my heart. Young, attractive, home ec major. No porno experience, but will wear things at night with feathers on them and has no earthly idea male sex organs come in different sizes. And where had she become a home ec major? This was very important. I am a graduate of the University of Georgia. I really don't care much for anybody who isn't, but I normally can deal with them if they at least are graduates of a Southeastern Conference school, unless it's Vanderbilt, where even the majorettes know Springfield, not Chicago, is the capital of Illinois. So my first choice would be a young, attractive, willing to be kinky home ec major from the University of Georgia. We could go to all the Georgia football games together, and she wouldn't think getting down on one's knees and barking at a Clemson fan was odd behavior or the result of staying for too many years at the School of Veterinary Medicine. We do bark at Georgia football games. We are the Bulldogs, pronounced either Bulldogs or the preferred Dogs. And when there is a kickoff, we stand and scream as the kicker approaches the ball, "Go!" When the ball is kicked, we add "Dogs," followed by 5 barks. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, it's a Georgia thing. You wouldn't understand. But I'd settle for an Alabama girl's sake. I'd been out with a few Auburn girls already. They were hard to wean off their plainsman background, but if you took them to a cattle auction occasionally, you eventually could win them over. I decided this was what I would say I wanted in my personals ad. Young, 23 to 28, attractive, willing female, SEC, preferably, UGA, no Vanderbilts need apply. Home ec major who has never experienced Maxims and doesn't even know there exists such a place as Montpelier, Vermont. That part was easy. But then I looked closely at the personals and realized I also would have to describe myself in the ad. It didn't take me long to figure out what the coded initials in each ad meant. M, male. F, female. W, white. B, black. A, Asian. N-A, Native American. N-A-C, Native American Cherokee. I suppose there are codes for Eskimos, Kiwanians, and people from Tasmania too, but no such individuals had placed an ad in the newspaper I was checking that day. There's more. S, straight. G, gay. Bi, whatever. Nobody who liked to do it with goats was mentioned either. There were religious preferences, of course. C, Catholic. P, Protestant. J, Jewish. M, Muslim. S, person who goes to those churches where they pass around rattlesnakes to prove their faith. R, B, S. Recently bitten person who goes to those churches where they pass around rattlesnakes to prove their faith would like to meet a nurse with background in poison control. What I didn't find, however, were any codes for an individual's geographic background as it pertained to regions. Hispanic, sure, but Mexican, Spaniard, Asian, North Korean, or South Korean. Native American? Would a Cherokee want to go out with a Crow? I'm straight, I'm white, I'm male, but I'm also Southern. And it was very important I get that across in my ad. I didn't want some lovely child recently graduated with a master's in home ec from the University of Tennessee to think she might be getting hooked up with some guy who majored in staying warm at the University of Minnesota. So here's what I would call myself in my personals ad. SSWM, whose great-great-great-grandfather fought for the losing side at Gettysburg. Seeks young, 23 to 28, attractive and willing female, SEC, UGA preferable, no Vanderbilts need apply, home ec major who has never experienced Maxim's, famous restaurant in Paris, France, where I might take you once they reinstate my Amex, MC, etc., and doesn't even know there is such a place as Montpelier, Vermont. I also realized I need to put my own age, mid-40s, a little zip still remaining on the old fastball. Whether or not I dug ditches for a living, I don't. You put prof in that case. And whether or not I smoked. People are really picky about smoking these days. I smoke. I didn't want to get hooked up with some young woman who had anything against secondhand smoke. If she also smoked, that would be great, but if she didn't, I still would want her to pick up a carton of Vantage when she was grocery shopping and not bitch about it and try to send me to a stop smoking clinic where they made you sleep with a eucalyptus plant for a week. I also have an occasional social cocktail, but I don't do drugs. It would be necessary to point that out as well. I figured I also ought to put in something about preferring country music and detesting hard rock, heavy metal, punk rap, Prince, MTV, the B-52s, and asparagus. Not to be confused with Bean Sprouts, the rock group with the recent hit, Let's Do It in the Ranch Dressing. Then there was my political bent. Pat Buchanan, compared to me, is a bedwetting liberal. Except when deer hunters say to me, if we don't kill deer, they'll all starve to death. I reply, well, why don't you just take them some food? I also own a red truck. I thought I ought to mention that. And I'm a golfer. I have a 4-iron instead of a rifle that would blow a deer to kingdom come. Or kingdom went. In the gun rack of my truck. I also don't wear socks. Read the sports section first. Hate northern actors and actresses who try to fake southern accents. Whoops. Prefer white bread. Love barbecue. Think Meryl Streep is a dog. Order World War II tapes of television. Suffer from xenophobia, the fear of anybody named Zeno, especially if he's from a foreign country. Homophobia, the fear of being out of town and wandering into a gay bar by mistake. and claustrophobia, the fear of having to buy a lot of expensive female jewelry every Christmas. My ad finally was ready. I phoned the classified ad department of the newspaper. "Classified ad department of the newspaper," a female voice said. "I would like to take out a personal ad," I said. "Can't get a date, huh?" the voice replied. "Well," I answered, "it's just that you don't have to explain, dear. I've been doing personals for 20 years, and I've dealt with all kinds in my career," the voice went on. "Let's see. You're in your mid-40s, been divorced several times. 3? 3, I said. "And there have been lots of girlfriends, but none of them have worked out. They spend all your money and are ungrateful to you, and what you want now is some 23-year-old bimbette who has never heard of Montpelier, Vermont. Am I right?" This was uncanny. "Time is running out on me," I said, "and I'm afraid if I don't find a woman with whom I can have a long-standing relationship, I'm going to wind up alone in a nursing home." "With a lot of hair growing out of your ears, and you'll drool a lot," said the woman. "I had a brother like that, the poor soul. He kept wanting to meet a woman who had been a home ec major in college because he liked to eat. He never found one. Developed an ulcer in the process and is now in a nursing home, and all he can eat is saltine crackers soaked in milk." What a revolting picture. I had to find the right woman. "So tell me what you want to say in your ad," the woman said. I told her. "Oh, no, said the personal's ad counselor when I had finished. "Well, what's the matter?" I asked. "Everything is the matter," she answered. "You're a SSWM, a straight Southern white male." The words came out of her mouth like she was spitting out rodent hairs. "What is wrong with being one of those?" I asked her. "Everything is wrong with being one of those," she said. "Straight Southern white males are the most politically incorrect individuals we have in 90s society. They are racists and sexists and gay bashers. They are one step out of the Stone Age. They are fossils. They are obsolete. They just don't wash anymore. I wouldn't wish one on my worst enemy. They like football and country music, and they drive trucks. They are Nazis politically, have no appreciation of great art, such as the acting of the most lovely Meryl Streep. Their preferred diet is atrocious, and they are deathly afraid of guys named Zeno, especially if they are from a foreign country." Are you saying you aren't going to accept my ad?" I asked. "Listen, you redneck," said the woman, her voice now dripping with venom. "If you've got the money, I'll run your ad. But you're wasting your time. No woman in her right mind would answer an ad to meet Slim Pickens. Why don't you just forget about this and save your money so you can go to a tractor pull with those other good old boys you hang around with?" I was shocked beyond words. I was suddenly some sort of monster, some outcast. I always had been proud of my Southern heritage. My great-great-great-grandfather, whom I mentioned earlier, was the famous Confederate General Beauregard Grizzard, who had 3 horses and 4 Red Cross nurses shot out from under him during the Civil War and had lived through it all. After the war was over, he had opened a bait and beer store and sold more Pabst Blue Ribbon, Red Wigglers, and Louisiana Pinks than any other bait and beer store in an 8-county area. And sure, I'm straight. I didn't even enjoy taking showers with other members of my basketball team when I was in high school. What could be wrong with that? Gay basher? Me? At least I had learned to say gay rather than those other more descriptive words we once used. Then there was the racist thing. Just because you're a straight Southern white male, it doesn't necessarily mean you're racist. Does it? My boyhood friend and idol, Wayman C. Wanamaker Jr., was asked once if he was a member of the Klan. "That's the rumor going around," he was told. "You misunderstood," said Wayman. "Nobody said I was a member of the Klan. What they said was, I'm a booger under the sheets." Now, I've never been a member of the Ku Klux Klan or any other racist group either, and I wouldn't even know where to go to buy one of those pointy-headed hats the Klansmen wear. The KKK Mart? That would be my best guess. And sexist. Just because I wanted a home ec major so she could prepare me good things to eat? I would cook for myself, but I majored in journalism. The only thing they taught journalism students to cook up was a good angle to a story. I could still respect a woman who cooked dinner for me the next morning. And allow me to say this. If a woman can do the same job as a man, she should be allowed to do it and receive equal pay. Did you hear that? I'm not for keeping women barefoot and pregnant. I've been married 3 times, and not a single one of my wives ever got pregnant. I also happen to have bought my 3rd wife a pair of $500 leather boots in the Gucci store in Florence, Italy in 1980. A man who wanted to keep his wife barefoot certainly wouldn't shell out that kind of cash for a pair of boots. Most all women suffer from Imelda Marcos syndrome anyway, the desire to own or at least try on every pair of women's shoes on earth. Is that a sexist remark? If it is, I apologize. But I buy a pair of shoes and I wear them every day until they wear out. Then I go and buy another pair of shoes. It has been my experience with women, however, that a closet without 416 pairs of shoes in it is like a necklace with no earrings to match. But back to the barefoot thing for a moment. I must admit, I don't see anything wrong with a woman taking off her shoes and feeling the terra firma on the bare underside of her feet occasionally. It even can be a turn-on. An earthy sort of thing, like seeing a woman run naked through the forest. I've never seen a woman run naked through the forest, but it sounds like a lot more fun than going out there with a rifle, waiting for some poor unsuspecting deer to come along so I can shoot it and keep it from starving to death. Kathy Sue Loudermilk, the sexiest girl in my school, didn't even start wearing shoes until she was in high school, when the health teacher wrote a note to Kathy Sue's parents demanding they put shoes on her before she either got ringworm or stepped on a rusty nail and came down with lockjaw. Kathy Sue didn't want to wear any shoes. She was one of the first let's get close to nature individuals I ever knew. She liked to feel the comforting red Georgia clay under her feet. She didn't even mind going to the hen house to collect eggs for her mother and stepping in a neat pile of chicken leavings either. I come from a rural agricultural background myself, and I've known the feeling of stepping into chicken leavings, green with a touch of white right on the top, while barefoot. While others might think such a thing was disgusting, the sensation actually is like stepping onto a pile of cool Jell-O pudding. It feels quite good to the area between the toes and makes a nice little squiggly sound, as in squirtle, which is a combination of the words squirp and squiggle. I actually once knew twin girls whose parents had named them Squirp and Squiggle, both of whom had a toe-sucking fetish, and there is nothing wrong with that. They later turned pro and opened a toe-sucking clinic, as a matter of fact, and were guests on a recent Donahue show where they discussed toe-sucking at length and even demonstrated their technique on Phil, who admitted he always had wanted his wife Marlo to suck his toes, but he had always been afraid to ask her. I want to thank Squirp and Squiggle, Phil closed his show, for today's enlightening program. Tomorrow, our topic will be left-handed lesbian cross-dressers with rotten teeth. Regardless of all that, however, I still had the problem of no woman in my life at the moment, and the fact my personal counselor thought I and my kind were worse than a howling case of herpes. Still, she had said if I had the money, she would run the ad, and I wasn't convinced I was some sort of social leper, despite what she had said. So I told the woman, regardless of what you might think of straight southern white males, my dear woman, I still want you to put the ad in the newspaper. I will pay for every inch of it, and we'll see just who can flush something out of the bushes and who can't. Such lovely phraseology, she replied sarcastically. The man thinks he's out with his dog, old Gator, hunting prey. I meant nothing by that. It was just the way I had learned to phrase certain things. I have already mentioned my lack of interest in going into the woods and shooting animals, but there shouldn't be anything wrong with an occasional allusion to the quest of game. I'll never forget the time in the 8th grade when my boyhood friend and idol, Wayman C. Wanamaker Jr., a great American, and I were watching Kathy Sue Loudermilk clean the chicken leavings from between her toes as she sat on the front steps of the schoolhouse before her first class one morning. The teachers insisted all barefoot children not track in any smells that would distract the other students. Kathy Sue developed early as a child, and by the 8th grade already had the wheels off her training bra. There she sat in a lovely dress her mother had made her from a Martha White flour sack. It seemed to cling to all the strategic positions. As Kathy Sue's lovely fingers caressed and cleaned between her darling little toes, her flour sack dress had ridden up to her thighs. Her hair had fallen down into her eyes, and she was holding her mouth in that pouty little way of hers. It was hard not to believe in God looking at Kathy Sue that morning. Wayman, spellbound for a moment, finally said, I've been to 3 county fairs, 2 square dances, and a Shriner parade. I've seen a chicken play the piano, a baboon that knew his ABCs, and a duck fart underwater. But, he went on, nodding toward Kathy Sue, I ain't never seen a dog that'll hunt like that. I finished the rather harrowing experience with the woman in classifieds at the newspaper who said my ad, as much as she despised it, would run 2 days hence. The first day crawled by. The anticipation was building in me with every minute that passed. This could change my life. As soon as my ad appeared, I was certain the letters would come pouring in, and I would have the opportunity to choose from dozens of women who were dying to meet me. And I wouldn't have to buy a single dinner or drink. Why hadn't I thought of this earlier? The morning of the day my personals ad was to appear, I was up early waiting for the newspaper. I sat on my front porch pouring down coffee on the black of pre-dawn. Then, around the corner came a set of headlights. This is it. This was my newspaper carrier. He slowed in front of my house, and from the driver's side he threw a perfect strike into the hedges in front of my house. I have some rather large hedges in front of my house, and that's always where my carrier throws the newspaper. Sometimes, as was the case this particular morning, the paper would fall down into the hedges out of sight. My lawn was a lot bigger target than my hedges, but newspaper carriers, I decided, are a sadistic lot. If they had to get up at that time of day to deliver newspapers, they seemed to want their customers to be just as miserable trying to disencumber their newspapers from remote and dangerous places, such as inside large hedges, or directly in front of the neighbor's sleeping pit bull named Attila. It was still dark outside as the upper half of my torso disappeared into the hedges. I received multiple cuts to my face and hands, but after 15 minutes of searching, I finally had my newspaper in hand. I went inside, poured myself another cup of coffee. I glanced at the front page. The lead headline said, Aliens land in New York City, are mugged by street gangs. Another slow news day. I turned to the personals and began to search for mine. I found it. The ad directly above mine said, GWM, seeking partner for fun and games, must be physically fit, able to endure intense pain, and willing to experiment. Knowledge of power tools and animal husbandry helpful. Non-smokers and Christians only. The ad directly below mine said, BBIF, fit 30s bi-female truck driver seeks progressive guys and gals who enjoy travel and eating at truck stops. Big smokestacks and well-built rigs important. See what truckers really mean when they say they are going to blow the horn. Carrying a heavy load, I'm waiting for you. I got 4 responses the first day. The newspaper forwarded them from the P.O. box that ran in the ad. One said, Hey, trucker, I'm southbound and down. My CB handle is biggin', and I love a watered-down chili. Meet me at the bus station mornings 9 to 11 and afternoons 4 to 6. My leather lathers with anticipation. Another read, I'm 6'2", 190, and if you're looking for a power tool, you've come to the right place. Black & Decker doesn't have anything on this nail driver. Pain's my game, and I know chickens. Yours in Christ. Now, obviously, both these individuals had mistakenly written to the wrong P.O. box. A third letter wanted to sell me aluminum siding, and the fourth was a pyramid scheme to sell and breed llamas from South America. It had to get better. It didn't. I ran that stupid ad for 10 days, and I received only one more letter after the initial 4. It was from Jimmy Swaggart, asking me for a donation. Naturally, I was devastated. What had happened here? I hadn't advertised for anything weird. I didn't want to do anything that involved a farm animal or staple gun. I just wanted to meet that special lady who could take me out of the love nadir in which I presently found myself. When I called the lady at the newspaper to tell her to cancel my ad, she obviously had something smart to say. What did I tell you, pig? She began. No woman in her right mind would answer an ad for an SSWM. They are afraid you'd ask them to do something sick, like go to a country western bar. You rednecks are all alike. Your idea of foreplay is get in the truck. What could I say? She was right. If this had been a hunting expedition, all I would have gotten would have been chigger bites. If this had been a baseball game, I wouldn't have gotten a runner to first base. If it had been a war, I'd have been Iraq. If it had been a county fair, I'd have suffered whiplash on the tilt-a-whirl. My ego had crashed. Even the black box with the cabin recorder had burned in the wreckage. Here I was, alone and middle-aged, and a hair on a bar of soap, an Arab and a B'nai B'rith meeting, a one-legged man at an ass-kicking contest, a Ford Pinto in a Rolls-Royce showroom, a smoker at a jogger's picnic, a green fly in a bowl of soup, a piece of porcelain at a Tupperware party, Ernest Tubb at a Guns N' Roses concert. I'd brought a knife to a gunfight, a date to a Ducks Unlimited banquet, a mule to the Kentucky Derby, a voice of reason to a congressional debate, a cane pole to a deep-sea fishing trip, Hitler to a meeting of the American Civil Liberties Union. I was the epitome of politically incorrect, a redneck, a good old boy. My name was Bubba. I drove a truck with a lot of bumper stickers. One said, "America, love it or leave it." Another said, "I'll give up my gun when they pry away my cold, dead fingers." A third read, "I break for blondes." I wore a baseball cap with the name of a farm implement company on the front. I went around saying things like, "Anybody who don't like Hank Williams can kiss my ace." And, "Hey, little lady, can I buy you a beer?" I enjoyed football more than long walks, and baseball more than wine and cheese tasting parties, and I lost interest in professional basketball when Bob Cousy retired. I feared and despised welfare cheaters, rap, mushrooms, and anything that had to do with the Ivy League, fast-talking Yankees, married women who still went by their maiden names, biscuits that come in a can, men wearing earrings and or ponytails, San Francisco and New York City, liberal newspaper columnist Dan Rather, bikini underwear for men, and photography shows that feature a picture of a naked man with a bullwhip in his rectum. With apologies to Jesse Helms, if that's art, my ass is a typewriter. But what could I do about all this? I was too old, too set in my ways, and too stubborn in my beliefs to change. What are straight Southern white males supposed to do now that we've been cast aside like an old sofa? We're still a part of this society. I like to think we are still contributing to it. Who would change your oil and clean out your carburetor if it weren't for straight Southern white males? Who would write country songs like a friend of mine who was writing with the title, "I Can't Get Over You Until You Get Out From Under Him"? Who would coach football at the University of Mississippi? Who would eat all the pork big barbecue sandwiches and drain all those long-necked bottles of Bud? Who would be governor of Alabama? Who would love, with a nod to Tom T. Hall, old dogs, children, and watermelon wine? Who would put a car up on blocks in his backyard, go to stock car races, and keep bait and beer stores in business, thus helping to stimulate the economy? Who would buy a pickled egg from the jar on the bar? Who would love truck stops and beer joint waitresses and give them change to play Alan Jackson's "Don't Rock the Jukebox" on the jukebox? Who would love and take care of sorry old dogs who sleep under trucks and get motor oil on their backs? Who would name bird dogs Jim and Jesse and own a decanter of bourbon in the shape of Elvis? Who would say, "I heard that, and now that's a nice one there, a real nice one," on televised fishing shows? Who would chew tobacco and carry around a paper spit cup with a napkin in it? Who would still say tote for carry, salmon for salmon, and bullshit for you don't say? Who? Tell me who? Us. Straight Southern white males. We need love and understanding too, and once you get to know us, we aren't what the cat drug in from the garbage. We're people too. We have feelings just like everybody else, and we're damn tired of being looked down upon and having our political ballots called the Bubba vote. I press onward. Most of us work for our living. Some of us work very hard. We fly airplanes, sell used cars, heal the sick, build and design large buildings, change tires and pump gas, sing and play guitar, fight in wars, write books and plays, just to name a few of our occupations. We also pay our bills and our taxes and provide for our families. In my case, I don't have a family, but I do take care of my dog Catfish, the black lab. We normally are nice to children, don't cheat on the golf course, give to charities, provide jobs for others, honor our parents, and give blood. Lest we forget, the father of our country, George Washington, was a straight white Southern male. And so is Dr. Billy Graham. Certainly we have a share of goofballs and ne'er-do-wells. What group, ethnic or otherwise, doesn't? But we have one distinct unifying factor. We don't know what's happened to the world. And there are a lot of things of which we are all sick and tired. I've mentioned whining and bitching. I'll mention it some more. We're also tired of what we consider to be the chirping of little sparrows who don't have anything better to do than be disruptive and devious. I don't care if you're gay. Just don't bother me with it. And what black millionaires get into what formerly all-white country clubs doesn't concern us in the least. And so you're suffering from PMS and are mad because Geraldine Ferraro never got elected vice president. We've got problems too, like having to deal with the idiots in Congress who want to take and take from the productive in order to give to the unproductive, and having to be afraid of saying to a female employee, "Good morning," and having her take it as sexual harassment and filing a lawsuit. In a few words, we are confused and angry. Damn right, I'm a straight Southern white male, and I got to be that way honestly, which is to say, I'm proud of my heritage. It's politically incorrect by now to say such a thing, but I've already said what I thought about political correctness. I said it sucks the big one, if you don't recall. And if you think I'm enjoying speaking my mind here and telling the speech police to go to hell, you're right. This is more fun than playing with a pet chicken. All right, so now you've had that. This is nothing really to do with Christmas, although it did mention Christmas one time in there, in that Louis Grizzard story. I encourage you to go visit, buy his books. He's not around anymore. It still benefits his family, probably still benefits the publisher. He didn't have any children himself, but he did adopt the child of his fourth wife. And so buy the books, enjoy it. They're easy to read. Sit down, and people will get a kick out of them. They're a little bit dated because they were written. There were articles from the 80s and 90s, early 90s. He died in 1994. If you get a chance, check out the museum that's dedicated to, or at least in part dedicated to, Louis Grizzard at the Moreland Hometown Heritage Museum. That is in Moreland, Georgia. And you can learn all about Louis Grizzard's life if you look him up on Wikipedia, or go visit the actual Moreland Heritage Museum in Moreland, Georgia. I'll put a link to the website in there for you, just so you can maybe plan a vacation or check out a guy that I think is just great. That's Louis Grizzard. Here's another one, though, and this is how we're going to wrap it up with our storytelling today, getting us into the Christmas mood and the Christmas mindset. A story that a short story that came really at the turn of the century. 1904 was when this story was published. It's called A Christmas Present for a Lady by Myra Kelly. Myra Kelly is an Irish-American school teacher and author. She was born in 1875. She was born in Dublin, Ireland, came to the United States with her dad, who was a doctor. He practiced in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. She went to Horace Mann School and Teachers College, which is now known as Columbia University, graduating from there in 1899. She taught elementary school, and you're going to see this in this story because that's what this is about. Kelly taught elementary school at Public School 147 from 1899, right after college, to 1901. And she had 3 collections of stories based on her experiences as a teacher. She's got a character that teaches predominantly Irish and Russian Jewish immigrant children. You're going to hear that in this story because as a young teacher, this story is fictional, but I'm sure it's based a lot on her experiences as a teacher in the turn of the century in that neighborhood of New York City where there was a lot of immigrants, particularly from the Eastern Bloc nations, Eastern European nations. She had a minor theme going on with this changing of the character of the neighborhoods in New York City and how it was displacing the Irish immigrant families. And so she published a story in Loco Parentis, and she was sent a letter of appreciation by President Teddy Roosevelt. She didn't have a long life, unfortunately, just shorter, actually, than Louis Grizzard, who died at the age of 43 or 47. Kelly married a guy in 1905, and she died in 1910, March 30th, 1910, because this doesn't happen anymore. But she contracted and developed tuberculosis, and it killed her. No kids. She was 35 years old. And just very sad. Very talented writer. It's in the tradition of O. Henry and those good feeling short stories from the turn of the century that I love, and a lot of people don't think much of, but it's how a lot of a good half of the first half of the 20th century, people love those stories, and I do too. So I wanted to share this story that you've probably never heard of by a great author who died way too young back in 1910, a school teacher, talented Irish-American named Myra Kelly, and a Christmas present for a lady. It was the week before Christmas, and the first reader class in a Lower East Side school had, almost to a man, decided on the gifts to be lavished on teacher. She was quite unprepared for any such observance on the part of her small adherents, for her first study of the roll book had shown her that its numerous Jacobs, Isidores, and Rachels belonged to a class to which Christmas Day was much as other days. And so she went serenely on her way, all unconscious of the swift and strict relation between her manner and her chances. She was, for instance, the only person in the room who did not know that her criticism of Isidore Belchatowski's hands and face cost her a tall 3 for 10 cents candlestick and a plump box of candy. But Morris Mogilewski, whose love for teacher was far greater than the combined loves of all the other children, had as yet no present to bestow. That his kind feeling should be without proof when the lesser loves of Isidore Wisniewski, Sadie Gonorowski, and Bertha Binderwitz were taking the tangible but surprising forms which were daily exhibited to his confidential gaze, was more than he could bear. The knowledge saddened all his hours, and was the more maddening because it could in no wise be shared by teacher, who noticed his altered bearing and tried with all sorts of artful beguilements to make him happy and at ease. But her efforts served only to increase his unhappiness and his love. And he loved her. Oh, how he loved her! Since first his dreading eyes had clung for a breath's space to her like man's shoes, and had then crept timidly upward past a black skirt, a from silk apron, a red jumper, and from gold chain to her light face, she had been mistress of his heart of hearts. That was more than 3 months ago. How well he remembered the day. His mother had washed him horribly and had taken him into the big red schoolhouse, so familiar from the outside, but so full of unknown terrors within. After his dusty little shoes had stumbled over the threshold, he had passed from ordeal to ordeal until at last he was torn in mute and white-faced despair from his mother's skirts. He was then dragged through the long halls and up tall stairs by a large boy who spoke to him disdainfully as Greenie, and cautioned him as to the laying down softly and taking up gently of those poor, dusty shoes, so that his spirit was quite broken and his nerves were all unstrung when he was pushed into a room full of bright sunshine and of children who laughed at his frightened little face. The sunshine smote his timid eyes, the laughter smote his timid heart, and he turned to flee. But the door was shut, the large boy gone, and despair took him for its own. Down upon the floor he dropped and wailed and wept and kicked. It was then that he heard for the first time the voice which now he loved. A hand was forced between his aching body and the floor, and the voice said,
"Why, my dear little chap, what's the matter?"
The hand was gentle, and the question kind, and these, combined with a faint perfume suggestive of drugstores and barber shops, but nicer than either, made him uncover his hot little face. Kneeling beside him was a lady, and he forced his eyes to that perilous ascent, from shoes to skirt, from skirt to jumper, from jumper to face. They trailed in dread uncertainty, but at the face they stopped. They had found rest. Morris allowed himself to be gathered into the lady's arms and held upon her knee. And when his sobs no longer rent the very foundations of his pink and widespread tie, he answered her question in a voice as soft as his eyes and as gently sad.
I ain't so big, and I don't know where is my mama.
So, having cast his troubles on the shoulders of the lady, he had added his throbbing head to the burden, and from that safe retreat had enjoyed his first day at school immensely. Thereafter he had been the first to arrive every morning and the last to leave every afternoon, and under the care of Teacher, his liege lady, he had grown in wisdom and love and happiness. But the greatest of these was love. And now when the other boys and girls were planning surprises and gifts of price for Teacher, his hands were as empty as his heart was full. Appeal to his mother met with denial, prompt and energetic.
For what you go and make over Christmas presents? You ain't no Christ. You should better have no kind feelings over Christs neither. Your papa could have to a mad. Teacher ain't no Christ. All the other fellows buys her presents and I'm loving with her. It's polite. I gives her presents to while I got such a kind feeling over her. Well, we ain't got no money for buy nothing, said Mrs. Mogilewski sadly. No money, and your papa, he has all times a scare he shouldn't to get no more, the while the boss...
And here followed incomprehensible but depressing financial details until the end of the interview found Morris and his mother sobbing and rocking in one another's arms. So Morris was helpless, his mother poor, and Teacher all unknowing. And now the great day, the Friday before Christmas, has come, and the school is, for the first half hour, quite mad. Doors open suddenly and softly to admit small persons clad in wondrous ways and bearing wondrous parcels. Room 18, generally so placid and so peaceful, is a howling wilderness full of brightly colored, quickly changing groups of children, all whispering, all gurgling, and all hiding queer bundles. A newcomer invariably causes a diversion. The assembled multitude, athirst for novelty, falls upon him and clamors for a glimpse of his bundle and a statement of its price. Teacher watches in dumb amaze. What can be the matter with the children? They can't have guessed that the shrouded something in the corner is a Christmas tree. What makes them behave so queerly? And why do they look so strange? They seem to have grown stout in a single night, and Teacher, as she notes this, marvels greatly. The explanation is simple, though it comes in alarming form. The sounds of revelry are pierced by a long, shrill yell, and a pair of agitated legs spring suddenly into view between two desks. Teacher, rushing to the rescue, notes that the legs form the unsteady stem of an upturned mushroom of brown flannel and green braid, which she recognizes as the outward seaming of her cherished Bertha Binderwitz. And yet when the desks are forced to disgorge their prey, the legs restored to their normal position are found to support a fat child, and Bertha was best described as skinny in a dress of Stuart tartan tastefully trimmed with purple. Investigation proves that Bertha's accumulative taste in dress is an established custom. In nearly all cases, the glory of holiday attire is hung upon the solid foundation of everyday clothes as bunting is hung upon a building. The habit is economical of time and produces a charming embonpoint. Teacher, too, is more beautiful than ever. Her dress is blue and very long down like a lady, with bands of silk and scraps of lace distributed with the eye of art. In her hair, she wears a bow of what Sadie Gonorowski, whose father works by fancy goods, describes as black from plush ribbon, costs 10 cents. Isidore Belchatowski, relenting, is the first to lay tribute before Teacher. He comes forward with a sweet smile and a tall candlestick. The candy has gone to its long home, and Teacher, for a moment, cannot be made to understand that all that length of bluish-white china is really hers, for keeps. It's tomorrow holiday, Isidore assures her, and we gives you presents the while we have a kind feeling.
Candlesticks could have cost 25 cents. It's a lie! 3 for 10, says a voice in the background. But teacher hastens to respond to Isidore's test of her credulity.
Indeed they could. This candlestick could have cost 50 cents, and it's just what I want. It is very good of you to bring me a present.
You're welcome, says Isidore, retiring. And then, the ice being broken, the first reader class in a body rises to cast its gifts on teacher's desk and its arms around teacher's neck. Nathan Horowitz presents a small cup and saucer. Isidore Applebaum bestows a large calendar for the year before last. Sadie Gonorowski brings a basket containing a bottle of perfume, a thimble, and a bright silk handkerchief. Sarah Shodsky offers a pen wiper and a yellow celluloid collar button. And Eva Kadansky gives an elaborate nasal douche under the pleasing delusion that it is an atomizer. Once more sounds of grief reach teacher's ears. Rushing again to the rescue, she throws open the door and comes upon woe personified. Eva Gonorowski, her hair in the wildest disarray, her stocking fouled, unguarded, and down to her ankle, appears before her teacher. She bears all the marks of Hamlet's excitement and many more, including a tear-stained little face and a gilt saucer clasped to a panting breast.
Eva, my dearest Eva, what happened to you now?
Asks teacher, for the list of ill chances which have befallen this one of her charges is very long. And Eva wails forth that a boy, a very big boy, had stolen her golden cup, what I had for you by present, and has left her only the saucer and her undying love to bestow. Before Eva's sobs have quite yielded to teacher's arts, Jacob Spitsky presses forward with a tortoise-shell comb of terrifying aspect and hungry teeth, and an air showing forth a determination to adjust it in its destined place. Teacher meekly bows her head. Jacob forces his offering into her long-suffering hair, and then retires with the information, "Cost 15 cents, teacher," and the courteous phrase, by etiquette prescribed, "Wish you health to wear it." Here, a big boy, a very big boy, enters hastily. He does not belong to room 18, but he has long known teacher. He has brought her a present. He wishes her a Merry Christmas. The present, when produced, proves to be a pretty gold cup. And Eva Gonorowski, with renewed emotion, recognizes the boy as her assailant and the cup as her property. Teacher is dreadfully embarrassed. The boy, not at all so. His policy is simple and entire denial, and in this he perseveres even after Eva's saucer has unmistakably proclaimed its relationship to the cup. Meanwhile, the rush of presentation goes steadily on. Other cups and saucers come in wild profusion. The desk is covered with them, and their wrappings of purple tissue paper require a monitor's whole attention. The soap, too, becomes urgently perceptible. It is of all sizes, shapes, and colors, but of uniform and dreadful power of perfume. No other teacher had so many helps to the toilet. None other is so beloved. Teacher's aspect is quite changed, and the blue long gown like a lady dress is almost hidden by the offerings she has received. Jacob's comb has 2 massive and bejeweled rivals in the softy hair. The front of the dress, where aching or despondent heads are wont to rest, is glittering with campaign buttons of American celebrities, beginning with James G. Blaine and extending into modern history as far as Patrick Dever, Admiral Dewey, and Captain Dreyfus. Outside the blue belt is a white one, nearly clean, and bearing in sure enough golden words the curt but stirring invitation, "Remember the Maine." Around the neck are 3 chaplets of beads wrought by chubby fingers and embodying much love, while the waistline is further adorned by tiny and beribboned aprons. Truly, it is a day of triumph. When the waste paper basket has been twice filled with wrappings and twice emptied, when order is emerging out of chaos, when the Christmas tree has been disclosed and its treasures distributed, a timid hand is laid on teacher's knee, and a plaintive voice whispers, "Say, teacher, I got something for you." And teacher turns quickly to see Morris, her dearest boy charge, with his poor little body showing quite plainly between his shirt-waist buttons and through the gashes he calls pockets. This is his ordinary costume.
and the funds of the house of Mogilewski are evidently unequal to an outer layer of finery.
Now, Morris, dear,
Says teacher.
you shouldn't have troubled to get me a present. You know you and I are such good friends that...
Teacher, yes, ma'am.
Morris interrupts in a bewitching, rising inflection of his soft and plaintive voice.
I know you got a kind feeling by me, and I couldn't to tell even how I've got a kind feeling by you. Only it's about that kind feeling I should give you a present. I didn't have no soap, no perfumery, and my mama, she couldn't to buy none by the store. But, teacher, I've got something awful nice for you by present.
And what is it, dearie?
Asks the already rich and gifted young person.
What is my new present?
Teacher, it's like this. I don't know. I ain't so big like I could to know.
And truly, God pity him, he is passing small.
It ain't for boys, it's for ladies. Over yesterday on the night comes my papa on my house, and he gives my mama the present. Sooner she looks on it, sooner she has awful glad. In her eyes stands tears, and she says, like that, out of Jewish, thanks, son. She kisses my papa a kiss. And my papa, how he is polite. He says, out of Jewish too, you're welcome, all right. And he kisses my mama a kiss. So my mama, she sits and looks on the present, and all the time she looks, she has a glad over it. And I didn't have no soap, so you could have the present.
But did your mother say I might?
Teacher, no, ma'am. She didn't say like that, and she didn't to say not like that. She didn't to know. But it's for ladies, and I didn't have to know soap. You could to look on it. It ain't for boys.
And here Morris opens a hot little hand and discloses a tightly folded pinkish paper. As teacher reads it, he watches her with eager, furtive eyes, dry and bright, until hers grow suddenly moist, when his promptly follows suit. As she looks down at him, he makes his moan once more.
It's for ladies, and I didn't have no soap.
But, Morris, dear,
Cries teacher unsteadily, laughing a little, and yet not far from tears herself.
this is ever so much nicer than soap. 1,000 times better than perfume, and you're quite right, it is for ladies. And I never had one in all my life before. I'm so very thankful.
You're welcome, all right. That's how my papa says. It's polite.
Says Morris proudly, and proudly he takes his place among the very little boys, and loudly he joins in the ensuing song. For the rest of that exciting day, he is a shining point of virtue in a slightly confused class. And at 3 o'clock, he is at teacher's desk again, carrying on the conversation as if there had been no interruption.
And my mama,
He says insinuatingly.
she kisses my papa a kiss.
Well,
Says teacher.
Well,
Says Morris.
you ain't never kissed me a kiss. And I see how you kissed Eva Gonorski. I'm loving with you too. Why don't you never kiss me a kiss?
perhaps
Suggests teacher mischievously.
it ain't for boys.
But a glance at her light face with its crown of surprising combs reassures him.
Teacher, yes ma'am, it's for boys.
He cries as he feels her arms about him and sees that in her eyes too stands tears.
It's polite. You kisses me a kiss over that. For ladies present.
Late that night, teacher sat in her pretty room, for she was unofficially a great pampered young person, and reviewed her treasures. She saw that they were very numerous, very touching, very whimsical, and very precious. But above all the rest, she cherished a frayed, pinkish paper, rather crumpled and a little soiled. For it held the love of a man and a woman and a little child, and the magic of a home. For Morris Mogilewski's Christmas present for ladies was the receipt for a month's rent for a room on the top floor of a Monroe Street tenement. That's it. That's our show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I sure do thank you for stopping by and taking a listen. Enjoy these stories. Share them with your friends. Like us on Facebook. Like us on YouTube. That's important, I guess. And give us a rating. That is also, I've found, actually pretty helpful, particularly on Apple. It does make a difference. Thank you for all that you do. Go out there, be useful, keep your hands busy and your heart and mind open, and be the sunny side of somebody else's life. See you next week. I want to thank all our friends and guests for stopping by for this episode of The Sunny Side of Life. All the Sunny Side of Life players who stopped by, creative support provided every day by my incredible wife Heidi and our fantastic 4 boys. Thanks to every one of our listeners. That means you. A big shout out to my brothers and sisters in uniform holding the line around the world. Share the word, folks. Let the people know what we're up to. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. All skits are written or adapted and directed by me, Troy Thompson, and are produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios and delivered to all platforms by Buzzsprout. Music and sound effects are provided by Soundstripe. The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. Now, none of this is possible without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life, liberty and pursuits, be in Christ, and made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.